Ever feel like psychology and religion are kind of like speaking different languages?
Yeah, it's a common thought for sure. They seem like separate worlds.
Right. One's all about the mind, the other the soul. Like they just don't mix.
But what if I told you they're like totally intertwined, always influencing each other? Just under the surface.
Okay, now you've got me curious. How do we even begin to unpack that?
Well, we start with Carl Jung.
Of course, Jung.
He really dove into this, not as like some mystic, but like a true scientist.
Right.
He was fascinated by this thing he called the numinosum.
Numinosum sounds a little like, what's that, a spell from Harry Potter.
Haha. Yeah, maybe a little. It's that feeling of awe, mystery, even a bit of fear when you encounter something way bigger than yourself.
Okay, I get it. Like standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or think about ancient rituals or even those deeply personal spiritual experiences. Like, regardless of what you believe, those things hit you on a different level. And Jung believed they have a huge psychological impact.
So it's less about if a certain religion is true and more about how these encounters with the numinous change us from the inside.
Exactly. And this is where Jung's concept of the unconscious comes in.
Okay, the unconscious.
Now, forget Freud's thing, that whole basement of repressed desires thing.
Right, right.
Jung saw it as way more active, way more independent.
Independent, you mean it's like making decisions back there without us even knowing?
It can be a little unnerving.
Yeah, a little bit.
Think of it like walking on a volcano that's the unconscious.
Okay, wow, that's an image.
You've got this immense power bubbling beneath the surface. Usually we ignore it, but it can erupt into our lives.
And does it actually erupt?
Jung even had this patient who was convinced he had imaginary cancer.
Imaginary cancer, so like not hypochondria, but...
Exactly. The unconscious was manifesting physically, totally outside of his control.
Wow, okay. So we're not just talking about repressed memories here, but the unconscious actually shaping our world, even our health.
That's a lot to take in, right?
It really is.
And Jung called these unconscious patterns complexes.
Complexes, right?
Almost like little mini personalities living inside us.
It's like having a bunch of roommates in your head, but they don't pay rent.
Exactly. Think about a fear of public speaking, right? Maybe it stems from some humiliating thing that happened in your childhood.
I could see that, yeah.
That complex can totally hold you back, even if, logically, you've got something important to say.
So how do we get those roommates to cooperate?
Well, that's where those numinous experiences come in. They have the power to kind of shake things up in there.
Shake up the complexes.
Exactly. And that's also where dreams become really important. Not fortune-telling, but like reflections of this inner world.
Messages from the unconscious.
Yes, like little messages trying to guide us.
Like that one Jung talks about, where his patient's in a church, but is the opposite of peaceful.
Ah, yes, the degenerate religion dream.
He called it that, right?
Yeah.
With a rowdy mob and tons of wine. And knowing this guy struggled with alcohol, it seems kind of straightforward,
On the surface, yeah, for sure. But Jung always goes deeper.
Of course he does.
What if it's not just reflecting the guy's struggle, but highlighting something he's missing? Like a yearning for a genuine spiritual connection, something more.
So it's like the unconscious that's saying, hey, this isn't working for you. There's a whole other level of religious experience out there.
Exactly. This dream, with its almost, blasphemous imagery, it happens right before this fascinating vision, what he calls the world clock dream.
World clock dream.
It's full of symbolism and really gets at the heart of Jung's ideas.
But we'll have to say that for part 2, I guess.
Exactly. We're just getting started.
Okay, so that world clock dream, we got to hear about that. What's so special about it?
It's not just the imagery, but what it says about the unconscious,
Okay, yeah.
So picture this 2 circles, one blue spinning vertically, the other gold going horizontally.
And the gold one, it's divided, right? Like
Right.
4 sections, each different color, and with a tiny man inside each one. Not your typical dream about missing an exam, that's for sure.
Not at all. And what's really interesting is that the patient, he said it filled him with this sense of most sublime harmony.
Sublime harmony. From a bunch of circles and colors and little dudes. There's got to be more to it than that.
Right. And Jung thought so too. This points to some really old ideas about the universe, like way back to ancient Greece.
Okay.
Plato's Timaeus, for example, talks about this harmony of the celestial spheres.
Celestial spheres. Now that sounds familiar. Like from astronomy class or something?
Exactly. So the blue circle, that could be the heavens, right? And the gold one, maybe that represents the earth.
With the 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, west.
You got it. So suddenly we're linking a dream, a modern day dream, to philosophy from literally thousands of years ago.
Okay, now that's kind of blowing my mind a little bit. And the little guys, they have some deeper meaning too, or
Oh, absolutely. They could represent so much. The four seasons, the four elements. Some people even say they're like the four gospels.
wow, okay. So we're not just talking about one guy's dream here. It's like
Yeah.
tapping into something much, much bigger.
Exactly. Jung called it the collective unconscious, this like shared well of imagery and archetypes that exists across time and cultures.
So it's not that this guy just happened to dream up these ancient symbols. It's more like they were already there in a way, passed down through like all of human experience.
Right. And get this, Jung actually found a direct parallel to this whole world clock thing in a poem from the 14th century.
A poem, really.
Yeah, it's called Le Pèlerinage.
And it describes a dream with a blue circle, a gold circle, little men. Okay, I got to hear more about this.
So, not exactly a dream, but a vision, and a striking one. It's a vision of heaven, this golden place with a king and queen, and all around them are golden spheres, which symbolize spiritual growth.
Okay, so the king and queen, the golden spheres, it's that duality again, right?
Yeah.
Blue and gold, masculine and feminine. I'm telling you, this is way too much to be just random.
Right. And for Jung, this pointed to something deeply true about, well, being human. These symbols, they weren't just pretty pictures, but expressions of our nature, of our minds, trying to make sense of, well, everything.
So is this world clock, this mandala, would you call it a religious symbol? Because it doesn't really look like any religious symbol I've ever seen.
You're right. It's not religious in the usual sense. Jung believed it stood for something even bigger, the self, with a capital S.
Okay, the self, what's that mean exactly?
Not just your ego or your personality, but everything you are. Conscious, unconscious, everything, all striving for some kind of wholeness.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking about connecting with something inside, not worshiping something outside of ourselves.
Exactly. For Jung, the mandala was like a symbol of that journey of becoming a whole person.
Individuation, right? I remember reading about that.
Exactly. And it's about accepting all of yourself, the good, the bad, those shadowy parts we tend to just push down and ignore.
And for someone like this patient who's struggling with addiction, with this emptiness inside, the mandala becomes almost like a symbol of hope, right? Finding that unity within himself, especially when traditional religion isn't doing it for him.
Absolutely. Jung really believed that when those old structures start to crumble, that's when the mandala becomes like this protective circle, holding all the messy parts of ourselves together. It's not about rejecting religion altogether, but about finding a new way to connect with, well, something bigger, with that sense of wholeness. And it's interesting. This connects with another fascinating historical parallel.
Another historical parallel. Okay, you got me. What's this one about?
All right, so think about alchemy, the whole Philosopher's Stone thing.
Turning lead into gold, all that. Sounds a little far-fetched, even for me.
Right. Sounds like medieval magic, right?
Yeah.
But Jung saw something deeper there.
Okay, I'm listening.
He said it wasn't really about getting rich. It was about transformation, changing yourself from the inside out. That Philosopher's Stone, it wasn't just a hunk of rock. It was about refining your soul, becoming something more.
So kind of like the mandala, right? It's about this inner alchemy.
Yeah.
Transforming ourselves, not just some object.
Yes, exactly. Inner alchemy. And what's amazing is that this symbol, the mandala, it pops up in dreams all the time, even for people who've never heard of Jung or alchemy. Like, it's just hardwired into us, this desire for wholeness.
So it's like what our unconscious is trying to tell us something, sending us messages through these symbols.
Maybe. And that's what I really want listeners to take away from this.
Yeah, what does this all mean for us out here in the real world?
It's not about subscribing to some belief system. It's about exploring what's going on inside your own head. Have you ever had a dream with a symbol that kept coming back? Something that just felt important, even if you didn't really get it?
Oh, yeah, totally. I have this recurring dream about, well, never mind. But yeah, those dreams stay with you.
Exactly. Those could be messages from the unconscious, like it's trying to get your attention. Don't just brush them off as nonsense. What if they're trying to tell you something really important about yourself?
Like those times when you see a pattern in your life and it just clicks. Or, those moments of awe we talked about, like those weird coincidences, synchronicity, all that.
Yes. Those are all invitations to dig a little deeper, to ask yourself, what's my unconscious trying to show me here? What needs attention? It's not about becoming a Jungian expert, right? But maybe we can use these ideas to learn more about ourselves.
It's like stepping outside of your normal way of seeing things, like you're tuning into a whole different channel, and it's coming from within.
I like that, a different channel. And who knows, maybe if you start paying attention to those whispers, to that unconscious world, you might just unlock something you never knew was there.
It's like that quote, the unexamined life is not worth living.
Right.
But maybe it's more like the unexamined unconscious is a life half lived.
I love that. So, to everyone listening, here's something to think about. What if the key to a more meaningful life, a more authentic you, isn't out there somewhere, but inside you, just waiting to be discovered?